Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Board of Supervisors meeting for April 28th, 2015. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Avalos. Avalos not present. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Campos.
Present.
Campos present. Supervisor Christensen.
Present.
Christensen present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen present. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell present. Supervisor Kim. Kim not present. Supervisor Marr.
Here.
Marr present. Supervisor Tang.
Present.
Tang present. Supervisor Wiener.
Present.
Wiener present. Supervisor Yee. Yee present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. And Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
Yes, Madam President. Today we have a communication dated yesterday, 4/27/15, from Supervisor John Avalos, just stating he will not be in attendance to the meeting today and requests to be excused from the meeting.
Okay, is there a motion to excuse Supervisor Avalos? Motioned by Supervisor Farrell, seconded by Supervisor Marr. Without objection, Supervisor Avalos is excused from today's meeting. And Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda?
I have no changes, Madam President.
Okay, can you please read the consent agenda?
Items 1 through 12 comprise the consent calendar. These items are considered routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Supervisor Campos?
Thank you, Madam President. I'd like to remove item 10.
Okay. Seeing no other names of the roster, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll on the remaining items?
Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Okay, these items are passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please read item number 10?
Item 10 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to modify the rental payment differential and to regulate relocation payments to evicted tenants.
Supervisor Campos.
Thank you, Madam President. I am removing this item simply to make one technical amendment, specifically, and we're making this amendment at the request of the Rent Board. On page 10, line 18 of the legislation, I'm adding the words, quote, service of, and that's for the purpose of clarifying the information that a tenant must provide the rent board, to the landlord before receiving any relocation payments. So I make a motion to amend along those technical lines.
Okay, Supervisor Campos has made a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Marr. Without objection, those amendments pass. And on the underlying item, can we take that without objection? Without objection, item 10 passed as a first reading as amended unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you please call the next item?
Item 13 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to address the structure, functions, and establish the membership of the Our Children, Our Families Council.
Okay, colleagues, can we take that item? Same house, same call. Without objection, this ordinance finally passes unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 14 is a resolution to approve the fifth contract amendment with the Children's Council of San Francisco to manage the Preschool for All program subsidies and to increase the not-to-exceed amount to approximately $47.4 million from July 1st, 2012 to June 30th, 2015.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 15 is a resolution to authorize the issuance and delivery of a multifamily housing revenue note in a not-to-exceed amount of approximately $61.4 million for the purpose of providing financing for the acquisition and construction of a 200-unit multifamily rental housing project located at 588 Mission Bay Boulevard.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Item 16.
Item 16, resolution to retroactively authorize the San Francisco Office of the District Attorney to accept an in-kind gift of technical assistance for its crime strategies unit valued at $20,000 from Verteba, Inc.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 17 is an ordinance to authorize the settlement of the lawsuit filed by Kimberly Touye against the city for $125,000 filed on March 24th in California Superior Court 2014.
Same House, same call. Without objection, this ordinance is passed unanimously on the first reading. Madam Clerk, can you call items 18 through 20 together?
Items 18 through 20 are the resolutions to receive and approve annual reports for the North of Market Tenderloin Community Benefit District for fiscal years 2010 through 13, the Civic Center Community Benefit District for fiscal years 2011 through 2014, and the Top of Broadway Community Benefit District for 2013 through 14.
Same House, same call. Without objection, these resolutions are adopted unanimously. Item 21.
Item 21 is an ordinance to amend the building, administrative, planning, and police codes to require attenuation of exterior noise for new residential structures, acoustical analysis, and in some circumstances, field testing, to authorize the Entertainment Commission to hold a hearing on a proposed residential use near a place of entertainment and require the project sponsor to participate, to authorize the Commission to measure noise conditions and provide comments and recommendations to the Planning Department and Department of Building Inspection, to require the disclosure to lessees and purchasers of potential noise and other inconveniences associated with nearby places of entertainment, and to require the Planning Department and the Commission to consider noise issues when reviewing proposed residential projects and to specify factors concerning noise for the Entertainment Commission to review when considering granting a place of entertainment and making the required findings.
Colleagues, I want to thank the Land Use Commission for passing this out of committee. At this time, I will be requesting a continuance of this item for 1 week to the May 5th meeting. There are a few technical changes that need to be made to this item by the city attorney. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion to continue this item for 1 week. Motioned by Supervisor Campos, seconded by Supervisor Christensen. Without objection, this item is continued to the meeting of May 8, 2015. Madam Clerk, can you please call item number 22?
And Madam President, that was May 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, May 5th,
Thank you.
2015. Thank you.
Item 22 is an ordinance to designate the R.L. Goldberg Building, 182 through 198 Goff Street, as a landmark under Planning Code Article 10 and making the required findings.
Colleagues, can we take this item? Same House, same call. Without objection, this ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Okay, we're going to skip over our 2:30 and 3 o'clock special orders and go to our committee reports. Madam Clerk, can you please read item number 27?
Items 27 through 31 were considered by the Rules Committee at a regular meeting on Thursday, April 23rd, and were forwarded as committee reports. Item 27 was recommended as amended with a new title. It's a motion to approve the mayor's appointment of Debbie Meslow to the Commission on the Status of Women for a term ending November 18th, 2018.
Colleagues, can we take this item? Same House, same call. Without objection, the motion to approve passes as amended. Next item, please.
Item 28 is a motion to appoint Antonio Diaz to the Energy Efficiency Coordinating Committee for a 1-year term, yet to be determined, and waiving the residency requirement.
Same House, same call. Oh, sorry. Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, colleagues. I just wanted to acknowledge the incredible work of Antonio Diaz over the years, not only of building Poder in the Mission District and in the Excelsior District in San Francisco, but leading within the Southwest Network for Environmental and Economic Justice, which I also worked with, and our former comrade Eric Casada from the Mission District worked with. But Antonio is a tremendous leader for our city, not only in building grassroots organizations, but really giving a people of color, immigrant community, grassroots perspective to the issues of climate change and climate justice in our communities. This energy efficiency task force is largely a part of the work of Poder from Antonio and others within Poder. I think the coordinating committee's goals are to catalog all of our city's energy efficiency programs, advise us as a board and the city on new policies for the city to consider, and identifying revenue streams to fund additional work. Today, many of us in the broad Clean Power SF Coalition were united with environmental justice groups celebrating Earth Day, but also the potential of Clean Power SF moving forward in a very, very strong and positive way. So I'm really proud that Antonio Diaz is joining this energy efficiency coordinating committee and his leadership. I also wanted to acknowledge, too, that Cal Broomhead and Guillermo Rodriguez from the Department of the Environment have been doing heroic work, and I really thank them for moving this committee forward. I wanted to also thank the other new members of the committee, but especially Avni Jamdar, our local leader of our national effort called Emerald Cities, a collaborative around this country, but Avni's great leadership and the amount of work that she put in on developing a great representative coordinating committee with my staff. I wanted to thank Peter Lauterborn for working so hard on this one as well. I think San Francisco is really, really lucky to have such strong leaders like Antonio and Avni and others that join this committee today, and they'll provide really great community-centered leadership and an approach to dealing with our critical environmental programs and energy efficiency in our city. With that, I strongly urge your support for this, for his appointment. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, can you read item number 29?
Item 29 is a motion to appoint Linda Asato, Suzanne Gerardo, and Lynn Mers, waiving the residency requirement for Ms. Mers, to the Children and Families First Commission, terms ending April 29, 2019.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this motion passes unanimously. Item 30, please.
Item 30 is a motion to appoint Kim Garcia Meza and Candice Wong, terms ending May 1st, 2017, and Kathy Herrera Autumn and Sandy Blackman, terms ending May 1st, 2018, to the Office of Early Care and Education Citizens Advisory Committee.
Same house, same call. Without objection, this motion passes unanimously. Item number 31, please.
Item 31 is a motion to, it was recommended as amended. It's a motion to approve the mayor's appointments of Carla Bryant and September Jarrett, terms ending May 1st, 2017, and Meredith Osborne, Johanna Quiroz, and Ligia Stebbing, terms ending May 1st, 2018, to the Office of Early Care and Education Citizens Advisory Committee.
Can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, this motion passes unanimously. Okay, can we go to roll call for introductions?
Supervisor Campos is the first supervisor to introduce new business.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have a couple of items, but the one item that I want to discuss today is something that I'm introducing along with the co-sponsorship of Supervisor Kim, an ordinance to create an emergency fire task force that for the next 3 months will meet to review and develop legislation as well as other solutions for the purpose of improving fire safety here in the city and county of San Francisco. This 7-member interagency task force will include representatives from the Department of Building Inspections, the Fire Department, the Public Utilities Commission, the Department of Public Health, as well as the San Francisco City Attorney's Office, with a focus on fire safety, specifically in multi-unit residential and mixed-use buildings. As you all know, we've had a number of fires in the last few months, and a disproportionate number of those fires have occurred in the Mission District, causing 3 tragic deaths in the last few months, not to mention the displacement of dozens of families and small businesses. And so many people have been left homeless and unemployed. And I'm proposing this task force so that we can nurture interagency collaboration, so that we can harness the expertise that we have within the city to more effectively and efficiently improve fire safety. And More specifically, the task force will focus on three areas. First, it will review and make recommendations to this board on legislation to improve fire safety in multi-unit residential and mixed-use buildings, including legislation that I have already drafted, which would, one, allow housing inspectors to cite building owners when fire alarm systems are out of date. Two, require apartment building owners to post signs informing residents of their right to file an anonymous complaint about a fire safety issue. And third, expanding the scope of fire investigations. The second overall point is that this task force will suggest new amendments to the municipal code for the purpose of improving fire safety in terms of fire prevention measures, post-fire investigation, the processing and resolution of complaints regarding code violations, as well as interagency coordination and the sharing of information. Lastly, this body will review and make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors on the feasibility of requiring the installation of fire alarms and fire sprinklers in existing multi-unit buildings. Bottom line is that we need to do everything within our power to protect the people of the city and county of San Francisco, and this task force will play a critical role in those efforts. I want to thank Carolyn Guzman in my office, who has been working diligently on this issue. I also want to thank Supervisor Kim and her office for the leadership they have provided on this matter. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Campos. Supervisor Christensen.
As my colleagues know, I've been working since my appointment to try to figure out ways to add and preserve housing in District 3. This week, I'm pleased to announce that my office has moved forward in asking the city attorney to draft legislation that will add additional housing units within existing buildings in the district. This will add rent-controlled housing in that 95% of the residential stock in my district is buildings that were built before 1979. I'm delighted about this approach following the lead of Supervisor Wiener in his district, not only to add so-called in-law units in smaller buildings, but also to allow us to add additional apartments in many of the 20, 30, 40 unit buildings that are in the district. These are in areas of good transportation and good walkable areas. I'm also very interested in the fact that a lot of these units are likely to be added on the ground floor of buildings where they are more accessible to our seniors and to people with disabilities. The fact that these units can be added within existing buildings mean that we can add housing without harming the traditional historical fabric of our neighborhood, keep the feeling of the neighborhoods. So it's been my goal since the beginning to try to find ways to do this. I'm pleased to take this step. We have several building owners that have expressed interest in working with us to add these units, and we look forward to adding this one other method in order to improve the housing situations in District 3. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Christensen. Supervisor Cohen.
Submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, I have two items today. First of all, I am introducing legislation that correlates to legislation that was introduced and passed last year to ensure that our men and women in the Sheriff's Department hired after 2012 have the same rights currently afforded to our city's police officers and firefighters. And that is the presumptions in receiving health benefits and compensation that disabilities from illnesses such as cancer or heart issues were caused by their work. This law will give our sheriffs the same opportunity that our current police and firefighters have to more easily access workers' compensation and early retirement benefits, as well as death benefits for their families. Our sheriffs, like our other public safety officers, are brave and do extremely similar work compared to these officers to keep our communities safer. I do believe they should have the same rights afforded to our other officers. This law will ensure that any sheriff while on the line of duty that comes down with cancer or heart issues will quickly be afforded their right to health benefits under our city's employee retirement health benefits system. I do think supporting our public safety personnel, ensuring that they have quick and adequate health coverage is absolute least we can do for them. Recently, I met with a number of members of our Sheriff's Department as well as the DSA who brought to my attention the fact that they were not covered during the previous legislation. Studies have shown that peace officers are exposed to these additional risks, including academic studies and journals that show an increased risk for various types of cancer and peace officers, including sheriffs, due to various activities they asked her to perform. At the end of the day, I think we should be doing everything in our power as a city to support the men and women of our Sheriff's Department who put their lives at risk for us. This legislation is a step in that direction, and I want to thank the members of the Sheriff's Department as well as the DSA for bringing this oversight to my attention. Second of all, I am introducing legislation that calls on the SFMTA in coordination with our Transportation Authority to develop a white paper on the city's policy approach towards private commuter shuttle services and report back to the Board of Supervisors. Most everyone is aware of the private commuter shuttle services that we are seeing primarily now in San Francisco in my district, District 2, in the Marina neighborhood in particular, but are also existing now in Soma and downtown neighborhoods as well. These new services are somewhat uncharted territory for our city. While I do believe that they're addressing a clear market need, they have a ton of ridership. With some of the Marina Muni routes like the 30X at or beyond capacity, we do need to approach regulation in a thoughtful manner that allows these services, in my opinion, to keep operating, but sets very clear guidelines under which they can operate as a city. Before we get to the point of regulation, we need to have more information and data in place to make informed decisions regarding any potential regulations. And this forthcoming report from our two leading transportation agencies will drill down into the questions that are outstanding and provide key recommendations for how the city should move forward with next steps. Specifically, I'm asking our MTA and Transportation Authority to report back on whether and how these new private commuter shuttles fit into our city's current transportation, sustainability, and climate action goals. I'm also asking them to report on, although not limited to, what jurisdictional control, if any, the city and county has when considering a regulatory framework, the accessibility of these services, the routing structures, recommendations on managing curb space, training and insurance requirements, consumer protections, commercial requirements, physical emissions, vehicle types, and any other topics that they think are relevant. If and when these private commuter shuttle services expand throughout our city, I believe we need to have appropriate policies in place that effectively address further growth and mitigate neighborhood impacts. I personally have and know the SFMTA and their TA has been very clear when communicating with these companies that they need to abide by all current local laws so they mitigate neighborhood and transportation system impacts and concerns. I look forward to the forthcoming report and plan to host the hearing that I called for just a few weeks ago when the report is completed in a few months. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Kim.
Submit.
Supervisor Marr.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, in 3 days will be May, which is APA Heritage Month or Asian Pacific American Heritage Month, and I wanted to invite all of you to join me, Mayor Ed Lee, and the APA Heritage Month Celebration Committee for the citywide Asian Pacific American Heritage Month celebration at City Hall this coming Monday, May 4th at 6 p.m. And then also at this board next Tuesday, we'll be celebrating our honorees for Asian Pacific American Heritage Month in our chambers at 3:30. So thank you to President Breed for accommodating the APA Heritage Committee. And I really look forward to not only the Monday event, which is free and open to everyone, but also as we honor different leaders from our community that have contributed for decades and generations to make Asian Pacific American communities and all our communities a great place. For more information about APA Heritage Month events, go to www.apasf.org. I wanted to thank Supervisor Farrell for the introduction on the studies on the private shuttles. I wanted to also request to co-sponsor an ordinance or an effort by Supervisor Wiener to create a new task force on marijuana locally. I wanted to thank Supervisor Campos for many years of work with many community members like Stephanie Tucker and others for their work too, but I wanted to thank Supervisor Wiener for bringing together as many forces as possible to look at that issue. Also, I wanted to alert people that one of the big events in the Richmond District coming up on Saturday has been co-sponsored with my office and Assemblyman Phil Ting and a coalition of over 30 organizations in the Richmond District and citywide. It's the Richmond District Health Festival. It's this Saturday, May 2nd from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 10 to 2 at George Peabody Elementary School on 6th and Clement. It will, besides the leadership of the Richmond Area Multi-Services Self-Help for the Elderly, Kaiser Compassionate Care and the Office of Assemblyman Phil Ting, there's dozens of organizations that are planning and building for this healthy event that really focuses on healthy living and aging in place and healthy eating within our communities. We have over, again, 40 different organizations as part of our coalition, and some of the groups will participate include senior organizations, the SF Village, the Aging in Place organizations, Kaiming Head Start, education and youth groups, and Community Youth Center to Gummoon Women's Resource Center. There'll be a lot of different free activities and giveaways, but one critical event besides Tai Chi and yoga classes is a community kitchen that 18 Reasons, a great organization in the Mission District, and Education Outside, a group that works with young people to get them outside to learn in gardens and physical fitness efforts. But this community kitchen will allow some of our community's best chefs and food preparers to teach in an engaging way how to cook in a healthy and affordable way for our communities, from seniors to young people and families. And also our office is working with the PUC to promote healthy drinking and eating. I love these. The Richmond Loves SF water bottles. That'll be a key giveaway to many of the young people and seniors that are at the event. And also there's a whole bunch of exhibitors and fun things to do. So join us at Peabody School 10 to 2 on Saturday. Also coming up on Saturday, you could walk a couple blocks away to Green Apple Books, for example, from Peabody. It's May 2nd. It's called Independent Bookstore Day throughout the state of California. There's many different local and small bookstores, independent ones throughout our communities. I'm proud that last year Green Apple Books really did a lot, but they've opened up in the Inner Sunset as well, one of our great small businesses in our city. But so many of our local bookstores are institutions that are really struggling to survive. Modern Times bookstore in the Mission District is one of them. Many Chinese language bookstores are also closing, and I think supporting our independent bookstores on Saturday is really critical. They also have many different types of activities going on throughout our city. There's also a California Bookstore Day bike ride to visit 6 of San Francisco's best independent bookstores. The tour provides treats and discounts while also being physically active in our communities. And it's really important to know where our bookstores are and understanding the struggles that they're currently going through. Featured stores include Omnivore Books, Alley Cat Books, Modern Times, Bookstore Collective, Borderlands Books, The Green Arcade, and Green Apple Books on the Park. Free to San Francisco Bicycle Coalition members, this bike ride is really important. And if you want more information about our independent bookstores, go to cabookstoreday.com. And lastly, many immigrant community organizations will be converging on San Francisco tomorrow for the 9th Annual Immigrant Family Day at City Hall, with hundreds of immigrant community leaders and organizations really bringing their values and their demands to us in City Hall tomorrow. So Wednesday, April 29th is Family Day, and I look forward to meeting with the leadership of the immigrant rights and immigrant community organizations. I wanted to thank the San Francisco Immigrant Legal and Education Network for organizing the event, and the rest I'll submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Marr. Supervisor Wiener.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I have a few items today. The first, as Supervisor March has mentioned, today we're introducing legislation to create the Cannabis State Legalization Task Force. I want to thank Supervisor Kim and Supervisor Marr for co-sponsoring the legislation. Colleagues, as you know, we have seen in recent years cannabis legalization efforts succeed in other states. And there is a very real possibility that 2016 will bring legalized cannabis to California. Several statewide advocacy groups are working on statewide initiatives as we speak, and some have even submitted ballot language. If this passes, and there's a decent chance that it will, San Francisco will most likely be at the epicenter of this change in many ways. And so we need to take a proactive, smart, thoughtful policy approach to what this new measure, if it passes, will mean for our city and what we need to do to make sure that we're properly implementing it. If we don't formulate policies in advance of legalization, we will end up having a chaotic fire drill after legalization occurs, and that is not the best environment in which to legislate thoughtfully. And we've seen this in the past with the city in terms of not being able to respond in the way that we need to respond. For example, 420 being the most recent example, where it's taken us a number of years even to figure out sort of how to work with that particular annual event. The Cannabis State Legalization Task Force will bring together residents, businesses, advocates, and government agencies to identify the key policy issues we need to start planning for now and to make recommendations to the Board of Supervisors about how best to address those policy issues. Right now, it is proposed as a 19-member task force with representatives from the Department of Public Health, Fire Department, Police Department, Department of Building Inspection, Planning Department, and San Francisco Unified School District, representatives from the cannabis community, including both consumers and cannabis industry representatives, representatives from organized labor, neighborhood associations, business community, the tourism sector, and entertainment and nightlife, as well as public health advocacy. The term of the task force will be 1 year, and so I hope that by the fall we will have been able to pass this legislation and appoint and constitute the task force. They will then have 1 year to study what is being proposed at the state level, what has worked or not worked in other states, what are the issues that may be unique to San Francisco, and what they recommend the Board of Supervisors to do. We're hoping that in terms of the diverse membership of this task force, that whatever comes out of it will have broad enough base support that we will have an easier time in formulating a policy response at the Board of Supervisors. So colleagues, I look forward to the discussion about this legislation, about the issue generally. I'm also calling for a hearing today, an oversight hearing on a project in my district at the intersection of Bosworth and Diamond. For those of you colleagues who were at the Vision Zero hearing on Friday afternoon, where I engaged in a lengthy dialogue with MTA, this project has not been handled in a good way by the agency. It has taken way too long. There have been cost overruns. There are aspects of the project that were supposed to be in it that have now apparently been removed, and there's deep frustration in the neighborhood and frustration on my part with the way that this has been mishandled. I would normally not call a hearing on a specific project, particularly one intersection, but unfortunately I feel that we need to do some real public oversight here because the way that this has been handled has just not been the way projects should be delivered here in San Francisco. And so we will be holding that oversight hearing. And then finally, I'm today putting in a drafting request to the City Attorney's Office to ensure that tenants in units that are not official units, also known as illegal units, receive full notice when the owner is attempting to demolish their units. We've recently seen situations where building owners file for permits to demolish residential units that are not legally on the books, and the tenants in those units receive absolutely no notice that the demolition is occurring. Current rules treat tenants differently depending on whether their unit is official and legal or not official and not technically legal. Not everyone gets the same notice. A building owner can apply for a permit to demolish a unit that is not official without providing any notice to the people who are actually residing in that unit. This gives the tenant little time, if any, to plan, to push back, or to avail themselves of all the rights they have, such as appealing the permit to the Board of Permit Appeals. These units this is actual housing, as we know, housing our neighbors. In a recent case at the Board of Permit Appeals, existing tenants attempted to file a late appeal, and they were unable to do so under the current rules. And so we need to change the rules and make sure tenants receive notice. So we're working with our city departments, with the staff at the Board of Permit Appeals to understand exactly what happened there, and with the city attorney. And I look forward to moving forward that legislation, and the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Wiener. Madam President.
Thank you. It is now past 2:30, and we have one commendation that I will be presenting today. I want to ask Betty Traynor and other representatives to come forward so that I can present to you a proclamation on behalf of the City and County of San Francisco. Ms. Traynor and the women joining her today are a part of the International League for Peace and Freedom, and they are celebrating 100 years. And I wanted to read this proclamation in order to acknowledge just the work that this organization has been doing for a century now, and honor the women who continue to make sure that we continue to support and fight for causes that impact women. Whereas on April 28, 1915, approximately 1,500 women from a dozen countries, both neutral and belligerent, gathered in The Hague to express their strong opposition to the First World War and to work on plans to end the war. And whereas the women believed that treaties between great powers alone did not end wars, rather peace could only be achieved when there was equality for all. And whereas they sought worldwide disarmament and the peaceful resolution of international conflicts via a League of Nations, whereas the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom was established as a result of the meetings with Jane Addams as its first president, whereas the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom continues to work to achieve, through peaceful means, world disarmament, full rights for women, racial and economic justice, an end to all forms of violence, and to establish those political, social, and psychological conditions which can assure peace, freedom, and justice for all. Therefore, be it resolved that April 28, 2015, the 100th anniversary, be designated by the City and County of San Francisco's Board of Supervisors as Women's International League for Peace and Freedom Day in our great city. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Hello.
Hello, I'd like to thank you very much for doing this for our Women's International Organization. We have working for, as you say, 100 years, and we're still doing it today to end militarism, the waste of money that our military spends, and bring that money home, to end the use of drone warfare and nuclear weapons, and bring women's voices to all peace negotiations around the world. And I wanted to let you know that there are a number of women from around the world that are meeting today at The Hague in honor of our 100th anniversary, and we informed them of this proclamation and that this is WILF Day in San Francisco, and so they're all so happy that San Francisco is acknowledging us in this way. So thank you very much.
Okay, colleagues, thank you for your patience for that commendation. And now, Madam Clerk, we will return to roll call.
And again, I pass it back to you, Madam President, to introduce your roll call.
Okay, colleagues, today I have one in memoriam. Is for Mr. Wayne Osaki, who passed away peacefully on April 13, 2015, surrounded by his loving wife and friends and children, one day after his 57th wedding anniversary. Mr. Osaki was born in 1923 in Charlesburg along the Delta near Sacramento, California. In his early years, he was forced to attend segregated schools until high school, where he attended Clarksburg High, an integrated school. During World War II, he and his family were uprooted and forced into concentration camps near the Oregon-California border, along with 120,000 Japanese Americans during that time. He was released in 1946 and was reunited with his family, who was living in San Francisco. Upon his return, he went to San Francisco City College while serving in the U.S. Marine Corps Reserves. In 1948, he enrolled in the School of Architecture at UC Berkeley while working as a farm laborer in the summers to pay his tuition. In 1951, he began his career as an architect in San Francisco, and his true love was designing churches. And in his career, he designed 69 churches, including the Allen Temple Baptist Church and many other prominent African American churches in San Francisco, Oakland, Palo Alto, and he also designed his church, the Christ United Presbyterian Church, located in Japantown, where he served as a member until his last days. Mr. Osaki also designed the Japanese Cultural and Community Center in Japantown, as well as the Japanese Community Youth Council located in Japantown. In the 1950s through the 1970s, he challenged the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, which forced out many of the businesses and residents in Japantown and the Western Addition. He was a founding member of the Western Addition Community Organization in 1966, a committee of Japanese and African American activists who opposed redevelopment. And in an effort to rebuild Japantown, he designed many of the businesses and apartments along Sutter Street in the Buchanan Mall. He's survived by his wife, Sally, and his sons, Glenn, Paul, Dean, and John Osaki, who we work very close with in the Japantown community. And he also is survived by 3 grandchildren. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Madam President. We are adding Supervisor Marr as a co-sponsor to that.
Yes, thank you, Supervisor Marr.
Seeing no other names on the roster, Madam President, that concludes the roll call for the introduction of new business.
Okay, so Madam Clerk, can we please go to colleagues? I want to take us back in the agenda because I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of March 24, 2015. Motioned by Supervisor Christensen, seconded by Supervisor Campos. Without objection, we'll approve those minutes once we've completed public comment. And now, Madam Clerk, can you please read public comment?
It's now time for the public to comment generally for up to 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, to include the minutes, items on the adoption without reference to committee calendar, and items 34 and 35. Public comment is not allowed on items already subject to public comment at a board committee. Please direct your remarks to the board as a whole and not to individual supervisors nor to the audience. Speakers using translation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify, and if you would like a document to be displayed on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFG TV and remove the document when you would like the screen to return to live coverage of the meeting.
Okay, first speaker, please.
In principle, in daily work, have the mutual way of complementary. So our principle that we have come well professional daily work. We have daily work, we have good professional of principle. Also, a principle is connected to the 3 forces of heaven and earth way, of earthquake, weather situation, cloudy sky, ocean water, sea river, of such chemical, physical physiology of everything. And from daily work, we have applied the virtue of daily self-making improvement, so to extension above beyond to other people. Knowing that of one's life is every 10 affair of your life is 10 dream within. None of us a true dream of anything. The only truth of daily work will be just to make improvement of one's business with virtue and upgrade our self-improvement of holy qualities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
SFG TV, I have some graphics. It was sad about the earthquake in Nepal, and this is a hat in Kathmandu. And the picture is what sent me. The picture was Sir Edmund Hillary, the first to climb Mount Everest about 20 years ago. Sir Edmund, he signed it Ed Hillary. I don't know if you could see it. And this also, that was a sad tragedy. And this tragedy where my father lives, Discovery Bay, it was sad up there, the stabbing, and it was really sad to hear that on the news. Sometimes I don't like to watch the news. And my father's not too well, Phil Paulson. I hope he gets well soon in Discovery Bay. And so I know that we do need rain, and oh, how we need some rain. And the drought, it seems to last forever. Birds high up in the trees serenade the water down from Hetchachi. You're thirsty on the hill, and I hope you soon get your water fill. And if the water too, it will surely flow and all back to you. Now this water belongs to you and me, and thanks also to the PUC. And the water will flow, I hope it flows all and rains, and very soon, you know. And I just want to say, President Peskin said he was going to run for mayor. Just what we need, some smoke on the water, and it's really steaming now. Smoke on the water.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Dr. Sheldon Theory. I am a founding member of the Rainbow Party, and I have a lot of complaints. First, this agenda is a disaster. You guys ought to provide a time certain for citizen comment or put us first. I feel so disrespected having to wait to sit through these interminable introductions of minor matters. It's not fair to citizens. This agenda, first of all, you're asking, somebody wants $20 million more for risk management. I doubt that is a good expenditure. We're requesting that you hold those items, the 2 contract risk management items, at least until next time, until our party can look at them. That's item 150406.
Sir, I'm sorry, public comment. You can't speak of items that we've already discussed.
Speak to my personal experience.
Okay, thank you.
The city is hounding me. I am wanted for a charge of driving recklessly. I don't even drive. I'm being held on there is a warrant for me on no bail. I'm on my way.
Can you please speak in the microphone, sir, so we can hear you?
Yes, I am on my way to the courthouse. I was remanded into custody by Judge Chan approximately 2 weeks ago for daring to ask to have a restraining order against me lifted. There is a deep, deep problem in this city in many, many ways. Today, it is our legal rights. It is the legal rights of mentally ill people. It is the legal rights of black people. I was remanded to the jail for 3 days. I was denied medical care for my Crohn's as well as for my bipolar. I have filed 10 grievances. There has been no response by the sheriff's office. That is correct. So if any office would like to offer one of their staff to come over to me to the courthouse building to attempt to clear up the problem with restraining orders where there is no apparent review of conduct whatsoever.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Any office? Thank
you. Good afternoon. My name is Decha Bowler. I would like to suggest that for the next budget, the board include funding for the revival of the Neighborhood Arts Program, which provided for people short on money tickets to performances, workshops in the afternoons after school to make art projects. And I would like to, there are other characteristics that it had that could be researched. I'm not sure when it was several years ago that it was discontinued, but it's a very important exposure for children who otherwise don't see cultural events, the symphony. Oh, and another thing that they did was to bring members of the symphony to the school to play their instruments so they could see which of the sounds of the instruments is being made by which of the instruments. Also, there could be ways devised to bring music back into the schools. And I would also like to propose that for people of low income, the city fund or the program fund a book to be bought for the child of his own choice or her own choice, in case there are children who really do never have a book of their own. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Thank you, President Breed and other victims of the cabal. My name is Christopher Dahl, and I live at 6th and Howard, which is currently 10 blocks and 14 meters from sea level. I rise to conclude my funereal dirge on climate change. I quote from a contributor on Reddit named Kongsfjorden. The subject is climate change and ice melting and sea level rise. I've converted vulgarities to initials as a courtesy, and I quote, "A common example you'll see in the news is Pine Island Glacier, which is actually an ice stream. This is the thing that had the giant A crack in it that NASA was losing its S over around a year ago. When the ice shelf at the terminus of Pine Glacier eventually collapses, I recommend you don't have any children if you have not had any yet, because that is more than likely when the S will really start to hit the fan as sea levels start to really rise after that. More fun can be added if the Greenland ice sheet collapses and then suddenly jacks up sea level, which then forces the western Antarctic ice sheet to collapse, or vice versa." End quote. In full disclosure, I could find nothing else from this contributor, which implies a certain trollish, troublemaking behavior, or it's a real professional stating personal but socially unacceptable technical opinions. For specifics, I refer you to antarcticglaciers.org, and for urgency, I refer you to the inevitability of avalanches. Thank you, President Breed.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. A few weeks ago, I read something here about a homeless mother and her child called A Picture from Life's Other Side. Today, I'd like to read something about homeless men. You'll meet many just like them upon life's busy streets, with shoulders stooped and heads bowed low and eyes that stare in defeat. For souls that live within the past, where sorrow plays all parts, a living death is all that's left for men with broken hearts. You have no right to be the judge, to criticize and condemn. Just think, but for the grace of God, it would be you instead of him. One careless step or thoughtless deed, and then the misery starts. And to those who weep, death comes cheap. These men with broken hearts. Some lose faith and love in life when sorrow shoots her darts, and with hope all gone, they walk alone. These men with broken hearts. You never walked in that man's shoes, or saw things through his eyes, or stood and watched with helpless hands while the heart inside you dies. Life sometimes can be so cruel that a heart will pray for death. God, why must these living dead know pain with every breath? So help your brother along the road, no matter where he starts, for the God that made you made them too, these men with broken hearts. And I'd like to add, all lives matter. these people too. And I want to compliment Bevan Duffy and Mayor Lee for the efforts they've been putting into trying to solve the homeless problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. My name's Amy Farrow-Weiss. I'm the founder of Neighbors Developing Divisadero, where we've been saying yes in my backyard to inclusive, enriching, and sustainable development since 2011. And I was in these chambers back in early March, and I heard Scott Sanchez from the planning department say that the only way to get enforcement from Airbnb and other short-term rentals is with a subpoena. And so what I do when I'm faced with an issue of that nature is I want to find out what is the public pulse on this issue. So through Neighbors Developing Divisadero, by the way, my time isn't going down. I don't want to monopolize too much time here, but I still have 2 minutes. Okay. So, I did a survey, and 96 people, neighbors of San Francisco, took it citywide. And I was asking, what do you think about these two things that actually David Campos has proposed with his legislation, which is let's go ahead and ensure that Airbnb and other short-term platforms are verifying the registration code from the city. So we need to be able to do that. And that could be in 3 months, that could be in a year, but we need to set a date so that the onus is on these short-term platforms to help us comply. If they feel that the pressure is on and they're going to get fined in 3 months or 6 months or a year, then it's more likely that they're going to help us streamline this process. And the great majority of those 96 people strongly agreed with that sentiment. They also strongly agreed, the great majority, that we should be getting the data from Airbnb and other short-term platforms in order to be able to ensure that they're complying in terms of the nights that people are hosting. And so people strongly agreed with that. I went to the Planning Commission hearing, and I was there for almost 7 hours. It was quite a meeting. And I heard a lot of these home sharers and hosts, and I felt for them. A lot of them are trying to stay in the city and make sure that it's affordable for them too, and this is a source of income. And what they were saying was that they didn't want an invasion of their privacy with sharing that info, but I talked to them one-on-one afterwards, and it was interesting that they all agreed that it was okay to share the addresses and number of nights hosted. So I think there's misinformation being planted around what kind of information we're actually seeking. It's not an invasion of privacy, it's just the address and the number of nights. And I'm going to 2050 Bryant Cell Space Intermission later tonight. We're talking about the idea of the introduction of a Cultural Preservation Act, which is a one-to-one displacement replacement for our public utilities and arts organizations. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Next speaker, please.
Now, on the 3rd, March 3rd, I stood up for Archbishop Salvador Corleone, and one of you made a statement that this Chambers is in desperate need of mental health services. And I'm wondering, is that because I think that two lesbians cannot produce life, or two male homosexuals cannot produce life? I yield my time to the President to respond to this.
This is public comment, not public question and answer. Continue.
Yes, it is. I would yield
It's
my
not
time.
public question and answer, it's public comment. So you can comment of the items you want to comment on for 2 minutes, and there won't be a question and answer session.
Archbishop Salvador Corleone helped form Proposition 8, and I thank God for that, although I'm a Protestant and he is a Catholic. God says, have you not read that which he made them at the beginning? He made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Wherefore they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let not man put asunder. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorce and put her away? Jesus said, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, commits adultery. And whoever marries her, which is divorced, commits adultery. His disciples said, if the case of the man be so with his wife, it's not good to marry. But he said unto them, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. For there are some eunuchs which were so born from their mother's womb, and there are some eunuchs which were made eunuchs of men, and there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
Hello, my name is Dana Rose. I work in disease prevention. I'm getting a great deal of harassment, as I've talked about in the past. I just want to go over a little what I talked about last week. They're getting into my room at night. 15 laminations I did about the serious problems with the for-profit U.S. healthcare system disappeared from my room overnight. Here is just one of them. It's the International Federation of Health Plans. It shows a hospital bed in the U.S. is $4,300. No other country is close. In Europe, it's between 500 and 800 for the countries listed there. The other 15 laminations that went missing are of a similar nature. In the future, I'd like to talk about them. I gather signatures for ballot measures for a living. Before an important one, I developed a really bad case of laryngitis that has never happened to me before in my life. And this time I have developed a really hacking cough. I'm not that well organized today. 50 to 100 items of coffee and tea have gone decaffeinated from my room overnight, and all of a sudden I'm getting really a lot of intimidation, and big people trying to get me into life-threatening.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Tom Gilberti. Last week, again, the big land cruises lining up at the Muni stops. There are public commons, no handicaps. So I said I recommended 2 months. We give them 2 months to make their buses accessible, just like we give people whose rent go up a couple of $1,000s 2 months. If we were to fine them $10,000 per stop, $10,000 over $1 million is 1 over 100,000. So that's a little pocket change. They won't be insulted with it. Maybe that'll help them fix it up and get it up to where we have wheelchair accessible buses coming up from the peninsula. Also, when they do stop, I would like, since this is the information age, for them to broadcast where their next stops are so Muni riders can actually board them. This could be one of those events where you could actually meet your neighbors, providing they take the plugs out of their ear and they'll close their laptop and close their cell phones. Next, like piranha fish devouring their victims, we have the Ubers and the banded cell phone online taxi services. What percentage of their vehicles are wheelchair accessible? Let's take account of what's accessible for our taxis that have been regulated and deemed part of our community. And if it's a 10% or 15%, we will give those companies 2 months again, and then we will fine them $25,000 weekly. Comes out to be $2,600,000 a year if they don't add wheelchair accessible vans equal to what we have in taxis. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Madam Clerk, can you please call items 23 to 26?
Items 23 through 26 comprise the special order for a public hearing of persons interested in the September 18, 2014 Public Works approval of a tentative map for a 2-unit new construction condominium project located at 639 Peralta Avenue. Items 24 through 26 are the motions that approve or disapprove the department's decision and the preparation of findings.
Colleagues, we have before us today an appeal of the tentative map for the project at 639 Peralta Avenue, which has been previously opened beginning October 28, 2014, and then on December 16, 2014, and most recently, January 27, 2015. For this hearing on the tentative map for 639 Peralta Avenue, I understand we have received another request for continuance. So Supervisor Campos, since this project is located in your district, would you like to make any opening remarks or make a motion to continue the tentative map appeal hearing for the July 28, 2015 date?
Thank you very much, Madam President, and I want to thank our clerk and her staff for their help with this item. At the last hearing on this item, we requested a continuance with the understanding that we wanted to give the court an opportunity to actually take some action on this item, given the fact that the court schedule was different than we expected. I believe that it's makes sense for us to continue this item yet again, and we have checked with the parties and believe that there is agreement to do that. So with that in mind, I'd like to make a motion to continue the hearing open, as well as the associated motions to July 28th, 2015 at 3 p.m.
Okay, Supervisor Campos has made a motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Marr. Okay, before we vote on this item, we will need to open this up to public comment. So are there any members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time?
Yeah. Yes, good afternoon. My name is Rebecca Hoberg, and I'm here on behalf of Appellant William Bradley. Excuse me, I seem to have a frog in my throat. We're here to support the continuance. I'll keep my comments very brief. In the event that for some reason the board does not agree to the continuance, I would request to be heard on the merits of the appeal. As Supervisor Campos noted, there's a concurrent state court action regarding the ownership of the property. We had reported last time that there was a case management conference set for April of this year. The court has continued that to June 3rd, and so we would also request a continuance to July 28th so that we may have that case management conference and have more information to report back to the board.
Okay, are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide any public comment on this matter at this time? Seeing none, public comment is closed. Colleague Supervisor Campos has made a motion to continue this item to the meeting of July 28, 2015, and it was seconded by Supervisor Marr. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
And Madam President, that is on the hearing continued open.
The hearing is continued open. Yes.
Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Aye. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr.
Aye.
Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Okay, this item is continued to the meeting of July 28, 2015. Madam Clerk, can you please call the adoption without committee reference items?
Items 34 and 35 are being considered for immediate adoption without committee reference. A single roll call vote may enact these items. If a member objects, a matter can be removed and considered separately.
Okay, are there any members who'd like to sever any items on the adoption without committee reference? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On items 34 and 35, Supervisor Campos.
Aye.
Campos, aye. Supervisor Christensen.
Aye.
Christensen, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Marr. Marr, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Wiener.
Aye.
Wiener, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. There are 10 ayes.
These resolutions are adopted unanimously. Okay, Madam Clerk, this brings us to the end of our meeting. Can you please read the in memoriams?
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following individuals. On behalf of Supervisor Tang, for the late Miss Dora Quirk. On behalf of President Breed and Supervisor Marr, for the late Mr. Wayne Yoshito Osaki.
Thank you, everybody, for being here today. With no other business before us today, Madam Clerk?
That concludes our business for today.
We are adjourned.